the one, the only, Ben Sion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Daf It Sotah, Daf Chav 10, number 29, back in Israel. Nice weather over here, beautiful, mild weather, bordering on warm weather. Let's start from the bottom of Chav Chet Amabiz. The third to last line. Rabbi Shmuel Amar Rabbi Akiva Trumo Mahader Le Iu Kahuna. We had a machlokas on Daf Chav Chet and Aleph between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Not really a machlokas, but Rabbi Akiva derived that it says Tmeya 3 times. Echad the Baal, Echad the Baal, Echad the Truma. A woman who's a sota. She can't eat Truma. She's married to a Kohen. She can't eat Truma. Additional halacha. And Rabbi Shmuel learns another halacha from a Kal Vachomer, that she's also usher to the kuna, a woman who's married, who's a zona, who's a suffix sota. She's we're not sure if she's a sota or not. She becomes usher to a kohen. She can't marry a kohen. So Rabbi Shmuel, that was his sort of response to Rabbi Akiva, who says she's usher to truma. He says truma, and he's talking about kuna. What are they? Why aren't they talking about the same thing? Vasula Rabbi Akiva kuna minale. Rabbi Akiva only learns 3 things. According to Yishmael, he learns 4 things. Does Rabbi Akiva hold that she's usher to the kuna? Maybe according to Rabbi Akiva, kuna doesn't need a pasuk. Why not? Chavtam and off the top. Asa basafik zona kazona. Right? The fact that she's a suffix zona, we're not sure if she committed adultery. Nonetheless, the Torah compares it to it. When the Torah asks her to the husband and to the adulterer, she's considered to be like a vadai zona. Truma nami loti boikra. So therefore, also truma should not need a pasuk. Shari asaba safik zona kazona, right? A woman who's a zona, she's someone who had a bia to a mamzer or a sin or a non-Jew or an ebed. She loses the ability to eat truma if she's married to a kohen or she's from the family of a kohen. So therefore, similarly, she's also just like she can't eat truma. She also she can't marry to the kohen. El Rabbi Akiva arba. Truma also should not need a pasuk. Just like she's not allowed to marry a kohen, she also should not allowed to eat truma. A woman who's a zona, she's pasuk the kohen, she can't eat truma. So the Gemara concedes that according to Rabbi Akiva, there's actually 4 psukim. Chal the Baal, Chal the Baal, Chal the Kuna, Chal the Truma. Right? It says nitma 3 times, but one time it says vinitma with a vav. And we said according to Rabbi Akiva, he darshans extra vavs. So therefore, you have 4 psukim, one for the Baal, one for the Baal, the adulterer, one for the Shidas, the Gun, Chal the Truma. Rishmal plus a Kraik Siva. He doesn't darshan vavs. He has 3 psukim. Chal the Baal, the Chal the Baal, the Chal the Truma. The Kuna asim a Kal Vachomer. Kuna he learns about Kal Vachomer. Rishmal, according to Rishmal, he might Isra Kral the Truma. The Kahuna Asya the Kal Vachomer. Whereas according to Rishmal, why do you need? One second here, a little rearranging going on. Rishmal, Rabbi Shmuel, you might Isra Kral the Truma. Why does he need a pasuk for Truma? V'kuna aseh v'kal v'chomer. Kuna learns v'kal v'chomer. Dilma Isra Kral the Kuna. Maybe you'd say the Kal Vachomer is for the Kuna. So the pasuk is the Kuna. The third nitma is for the Kuna. Just for the Kuna. But Truma Sharia, and Truma we'd find no way. We'd say it's mutaris to a woman who's a sota. So the Gemara answers, I'm established dumia the Baal of Baal. We compare her just like the Esther. One nitma says Baal, also to the husband. One says also the adulterer. Ma Baal Michayim. That's talking about when she's alive. Av Truma na Michayim. Third pasuk also reasonably should restrict something that applies during her lifetime. Lafuke or someone's lifetime. Lafuke kuna l'achar misa, the lifetime of the husband. The Esther of kuna only applies if she's a sota, right? A suffix sota. We're not sure if she had committed adultery or not. The Isra of Kuna only applies really after the husband dies, right? Because while she's married to him, she can't marry anybody else. And if she gets divorced from him when the husband's still alive, she's a grusha, she can't marry a Kohen for a different reason. So the only time it would go into effect, the Isra of Kuna, is the husband dies, she becomes a widow. And normally an almana is married muteris to a Kohen, and then the pasuk would come and tell me she's usher to the Kohen. That's Echar Misa. It's not similar to the Isurim of Baal and Baal. Rabbi Akiva, Dumya the Baal Baal Leisley. Why didn't he say the same thing? Right? Why didn't he learn the pasuk? According to Rabbi Akiva, he needed 4 psukim. Why couldn't he learn, right? Like Rabbi Yishmael. He doesn't hold of making this comparison to the Baal of the bull. Vinami is like, and if he'll tell me yes, the reason he needs 4 psukim, he can't just learn kuna from a Kal V'chomer, because sometimes the Torah, even though something which you could derive from a Kal V'chomer, the Torah, for matters of emphasis, will explicitly give a riboy for it included. Amar Rav Gidol Marav, Davar Sheish Badasi Shal, Vein Badasi Shal, Mahaikra Nafka. So we concluded yesterday that in terms of Tuma, Safek Tuma, we learned from a Sotah, right? Safek Tuma, B'Rishus HaRabim is Tahor, B'Rishus HaYachid is Tameh, but only it's Tameh if Yesh Badasi Shal. So you had the case of Sotah, where you have a man and a woman, you can ask them, did they commit adultery or not? Not going to tell you always, but it has to be Dasli Shals. But the Gemara says a different source for that. Rav Gidol Marav, the average age of Dasli Shal, Vein Dasli Shal, Mahaikra Nafka. You have a different source for it, a different pasuk. Basar Sheiga B'Chol Tamei Lo Yochal. It's not Basar Kodesh. It touches anything which is Tamei Lo Yochal. Vadai Tamei Hu Lo Yochal. It says explicitly if it touches it, Hasafik. It implies that if you're not sure whether it touches a Davar Tamei, of a Safik Tar Yochal. The Safik, whether it's Tamei or Tar, you could eat it. Ema Seif. Say the end of the pasuk. Basar called Tar Yochal Basar. Anyone who's Tar could eat basar, which is Tar. Vadai Tar Hu Yochal can only eat basar, which is for sure Tar. Basar Yochal Basar. Safik Tamei Safik Tar Yochal implies what? That if it's Safik, you can't eat it. So how do you resolve the pasuk? The beginning of the pasuk seems to say Safik, you can't. You could eat, and the end of the pasuk seems to say Safik, you can't eat. Allah Shamina. There must be some difference. Kanjesh Badasli Shal, Kanjeim Badasli Shal. Depends whether someone ask someone. It touched someone who's has enough intellect to tell you whether he touched it or not. If it's Yesh Badasli Shal, then like we said by Sotah, then Safik would be Tameh. If it's Yesh Badasli Shal, a child, young child, who can't tell you whether it's Tameh or Tahor, so then we go L'Kula, it's Tahor. So the Gemara says, the Gemara concludes, no, you need both teachings. Even the Rav, if we just teach me the Rav Gidol Marav, teach I would say even if the Yesh Badasli Shal, we could ask the person, it would be Safik Tar, Safik Tameh. I'm sorry. It's a Lemigmar Sotah. You learn from Sotah only B'Rishus HaYachid. Only the secluded place. If it's Sotah, if it's just Sotah, Havamina Adika Dasno Geo Magia. If we learn from a Sotah, there we're talking about 2 people with intellect. The woman and the adulterer, they're presumably above age. They have intellect to tell you whether they actually violated adultery or not. So therefore, however, Rav Gidol Marav teaches you, no, even if one person, the person who's touching the davar time, one thing is a food, it doesn't have Dasli Shal. The person who touches it, that person needs intellect. Only one of the people need intellect in order to say to conclude that in Rosh Yachid Safik would go the Tameh would be Tameh, even though only one person is Dasli Shal. Today we're reading Ben Sion. After this, we're all going to elaborate on this concept of Safik Tumah Rosh Yachid is Tameh only if the Yesh Dasli Shal. What we can learn from that about this halacha, which is a very important halacha about Safik Tumah, that we really go L'Kula all the time, unless it's 2 factors. It's a secluded place, Rosh Yachid, and also Yesh Dasli Shal. We'll talk about that more in Ina Ben Sion. So the Gemara continues explaining the rest of the mission. Other things they learned on that day, that fateful day, that Rabbi Gamliel embarrassed Rabbi Yeshua, and they appointed Elizabeth and Nazariah, and they had led a lot of Talmidim into the base matters. They taught a lot of those things, new things that day. Akiva brought a pasuk to tell you that something comes shlishi min Torah, not just from a Kal V'chomer, like Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai thought. Lama Tame. So the Gemara asked according to Yochanan and Zakkai. Yochanan and Zakkai said, a Kal V'chomer I could have learned it, but I couldn't have learned from an explicit pasuk in the Torah like Rabbi Akiva Darshan. So if he doesn't have an explicit pasuk, why is it Tame? What is the Kal V'chomer basically? Amar B'Yudam Rav min Torah ein lam. Within Kal V'chomer yeshlo. Yeah, he could learn it from a Kal V'chomer. That there is Tuma a shlishi from the Torah. Matful yom the Kal V'chomer. Matful yom shemoter b'chul. And Tful yom is a one man. Let's say there's different types of Tuma. Let's say the classical case, he touched a corpse, so he has to wait 7 days. On the 3rd and 7th day, he has to sprinkle himself. On the 7th day, he goes to the mikvah, and then he waits until Herav Shemesh, until sunset. Before sunset, after he went to the mikvah, it's considered a Tful yom. So when he's in the status of a Tful yom, he could have chulin food. Meaning, if it's Meiser Sheni, it's only an issur of eating a regular Yisrael, only has an issur of eating chulin that's tummy if it's Meiser Sheni. He's mother b'chulin. Posel b'truma, he can't eat truma. He's a Kohen, and he has not, Herav Shemesh has not happened yet. He can't eat truma. Kikar Sheni, a kikar, which is a sheni, meaning which touches a rishon l'tuma, a posel b'chulin. Meaning, if it belongs to Meiser Sheni, you can't eat it. Eno din sheyas shlishi b'truma. Certainly, if it touched something, it should make it a shlishi and make it truma. It's tamei vis-a-vis a Kohen eating truma. Whereas igel mifrach, it's not a good kal v'chol. Mal, it's full yom, it's again avatuma. It's full yom, right? If he touched a corpse, he's an avatuma. So he still remains an avatuma until Herav Shemesh, basically. He might be able to eat chulin after he went to the mikveh, but he's still principally an avatuma. Tesi mitzvul, tesi mitzvul. So that's the question. So our answer is no. Tesi mitzvul yom the sheretz. No, we learn from the mitzvul yom of sheretz. Someone touch a sheretz. If you touch a sheretz itself is an avatuma. You touch a sheretz, you're a rishon l'tuma, right? And also you have to go to the mikveh. You touch a sheretz. Not tummy for 7 days. You're tummy until you go to the mikveh. And once you go to the mikveh, then you have to wait tonight to Erev Shemesh to eat truma. But while you're still Tul Yom, you went to the mikveh. You just had the sun didn't set yet, right? So you're a Rishon L'tuma. Malish not Tul Yom the Shara, and in that case also, right? You can't eat a sheni. You can't eat chulin, which if it's Meiser Sheni. So not Tul Yom the Shara. Not Tul Yom the Shara. Shekenu Amino Avatuma. You can't compare them from sheretz. Because, right, a tful yom, there's different types of tful yom. There's tful yom of sheretz and a tful yom of touching a corpse, which is aviv asatuma, which makes you an avatuma. So in the category of a tful yom is an avatuma. Kli cheres yochiach. So the Gemara says no. Kli cheres yochiach. We'll bring a proof from the kli cheres. An earthenware kli mal kli cheres. Kli cheres. Why? What's the case of kli cheres? Kli cheres is talking about that the pasuk Rabbi Akiva brought. If a kli cheres, an oven, right, a sheretz falls in an oven, the kli cheres, an earthenware kli, becomes a rishon l'tuma. And the pasuk says anything which comes into the contact, into the airspace of kli cheres becomes a sheni l'tuma. Right? Rabbi Akiva learned, the pasuk says yitma, it makes it a shlishi l'tuma. Rabbi Yochanan Zaki didn't learn yitma, it makes it a shlishi l'tuma. But it becomes a sheni l'tuma. So kli cheres yochia, kli cheres doesn't have, there's a kli cheres can never become an avatuma. There's like a food or a kli cheres, they can never become an avatuma. Only a person can become an avatuma, or sheretz itself is an avatuma. Only a person can become an avatuma if he touches a corpse. Kli cheres yochiach. Mal kli cheres, so you can't live from kli cheres. So kli cheres, right, ends up making something into a sheni, and that sheni has the capability of making something a shlishi. So the Gemara says you can't bring a proof from Kli Cheres. Kli Cheres came a tamei ba'aviro. Kli Cheres is unique that even if you're in the airspace, a sheretz touched the Kli Cheres, made it a rishon. Anything which goes in the airspace makes it a sheni. Tful yom yochiach, but Tful yom has to touch it. The Gemara says Tful yom yochiach. Tful yom, right, doesn't have this chumrah that it's metamei ba'aviro. The chozer adin. Lo rizeh rizeh, lo rizeh rizeh. Sara shavashen shemutarim b'chulin and postim b'truma. So you can learn from both things, from the Tful Yom and the Kli Cheres. They each have their own stringency, but it's not the same stringency. So therefore, the Sara shavashen, the common denominator between them, shemutarim b'chulin. Right? Normally, they're mutter to eat chulin. After you went to the mikveh, you're mutter to eat chulin. And touch like Kli Cheres also. It's anything which touches the sheni is mutter b'chulin. Upostim b'truma. It's posel b'truma. Makes no shlishi for truma. Kol sheken kikar sheni sheposel b'chulin the posel b'truma. Certainly kikar sheni, right? That's what he learns from the pasuk yitma, right? The pasuk, obviously, according to Rabbi Akiva, yitma means if it touches something else, it makes no shlishi. But Rabbi Yochanan Zaki didn't understand the word yitma to mean that it makes something a shlishi. It becomes a sheni, but that's good enough, right? Kikar sheni posel b'chulin the posel because I have a kal v'chomer from Tvul Yom and from Kli Cheres, so therefore I'm able to deduce that even though it becomes a sheni when it goes in the airspace, so therefore it can make something a shlishi vis-a-vis truma, which is relevant to a kohen. V'dor achar, and the Gemara says the generation, the future generations will disprove me. How will they disprove his kal v'chomer? Tvul Yom and Kli Cheres have their own stringencies. They each have a stringency. right? One has Bamino Avatuma, and one Kli Cheres is Matami Ba'aviro. Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai said Chomer Lo Parich. Zakkai doesn't say that's considered to be a rejection of what he's saying. The fact that they share a common denominator of chumrah, as long as it's not the same chumrah, so therefore you can learn from it, we wouldn't reject it based on that premise. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yossi. So on a related note, the Gemara talks about Ravi, which is code relevant to Kodesh, to Pasuk, which is Kachim. Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is Menayin the Ravi b'Kodesh apostle. A Ravi b'Kodesh, something which touches a Shlishi. A Shlishi was relevant for Truma. It touches a Shlishi, it makes it into a Ravi. That it's also, there's a concept of Ravi by Kodesh. Shaposel, the Dinu, it's logical. Ma Mechusar Kippurim, Shamuter b'Truma. Mechusar Kippurim is basically someone, let's say, a Zav or a Zava, Gedola. They had 7 clean days, or someone touches a corpse 7 days. On the 8th day, on the 7th day, they do go to the mikvah, and they have to the mikvah full yom till Harav Shemesh. The next day, the 8th day, they have to bring a korban. So it's already the 8th day. They went to the mikvah, and there was Harav Shemesh, and now it's the morning, but they have not brought a korban yet. They're called Mechuzar Kippurim, right? Ma Mechuzar Kippurim shemuter b'truma. He's allowed to eat truma. He's allowed to eat truma at that point. Plus, he's not allowed to eat kodesh at that point. He can't touch him until he brings a korban. The requisite korban he's supposed to bring. Shlishi, shapasal b'truma. A shlishi, we just learned according to Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Shapasal b'truma. It can be achieve the status of truma. According to Rabbi Akiva, it's a pasuk. According to Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, it's a kal v'chomer. Eno dinu she'asa ravi b'kodesh. Certainly, it should make a ravi b'kodesh. V'lamanu shlishi l'kodesh min haTorah ravi b'kal v'chomer. And based on what he just said, we've learned Shlishi LaKodesh Min HaTorah, which I'll explain in a second. How do you know that Kodshim become a Shlishi? Ravi, we just learned from a Kal V'chomer. Shlishi LaKodesh Min HaTorah Minalans. The Gemara asks, where do we know that Basar Kodesh become a Shlishi? This is possibly brought on an olive, right? The Basar which uses anything, it touches anything which is Tameh. Anything with tummy, we know foods can become a sheni, so it includes touching a sheni. It makes something a shlishi. And that pasuk talks about kachim. Amar Rachman al yochel. The pasuk says you can't eat it. It becomes a shlishi. Ravi b'kal v'chomer k'da amran. How do you know it becomes a ravi? That was the kal v'chomer we just stated before. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan heard about this. Tam b'Ribbi any other. I don't know Rabbi, the great one. He was referring to Rabbi Yossi. I don't understand what he's saying. Mao sharei tshuvaso b'tzido. He wanted to learn a ravi of a kodesh from a kal v'chomer. There's a pircha. There's a question on what he's saying. Food which comes from a tzvul yom. Again, tzvul yom is someone who went to the mikveh. However, they didn't have Harav Shemesh yet. He can't eat truma. And yet he does not make, right? He can't eat truma, and nonetheless he's not able to make something he touches or a V, a kodesh, the sanya. How do you know that's true? Abba Shal Omer, with 3 opinions, we'll see in here. Abba Shal Omer, Tvul Yom, Tchila LaKodesh, Latami Shnayim, Ulapsol Echad. Abba Shal actually says not like Rabbi Yochanan. He says that it is possible. We'll see the question is from the Rabbanan, who's the main sheet. Abba Shal says that Tvul Yom, someone who went to the mikvah, did not have Erev Shemesh. He's a Tchila LaKodesh, Latami Shnayim, Ulapsol Echad. Meaning let's say he's a Rishon Latuma. So you can make something a sheni l'tuma. That sheni can make a shlishi l'tuma. And tummy, the word tummy means that it has not only is a tummy, it has the capability of making tummy something else. So the sheni and the shlishi are not only tummy; they have the capability of making the sheni making the shlishi and the shlishi making the ravi. And one is puzzle, meaning it makes it into a ravi, which is puzzle. You can't make the kinds of the chamishi. Rameir omer matami echad opos al echad. Rameir basically says that a Tvul Yom touches it, he makes it a shlishi. He doesn't go and make it a sheni; he makes it a shlishi. And then the shli makes a ravi. So both according to Rameir and Rabbi Abba Shol, it makes sense what Rabbi Yossi said. However, the Chum say Kishem sheposel ochle truma mashke truma kak posel ochle kodesh or mashke kodesh. Just like a Tvul Yom, if he touches it, he would posel ochle foods for a truma, right? Meaning he would make any food that he would posel the truma, he'd make it a shlishi. So too by kodesh, he would also make it a shlishi. He wouldn't make it a ravi. Like Rameir said, it wouldn't have the capability of becoming a ravi. He would make it right immediately a shlishi. Make the kodesh a shlishi. And that stops there. It can't become a ravi. If it touches the other kodesh, it can't become a ravi. So that's what we'll leave off. The Rav Papa is going to ask, how do you know Rabbi Yossi holds like the Rabbanan? Maybe he holds like Abba Shal or like Rameir. That's the question we'll leave off for tomorrow. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion when we talk. I want to elaborate more on this concept. Subject Tumah versus Yachid is Tameh, versus Rabbim is Tor. explain exactly, is that Daraisa, the Rabbana, and Iyun Ben Sion coming up next.